Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. Feeling anxious is a normal part of being a teenager, but for some teens, these feelings of anxiety are so intense they affect their everyday life. Here with tips on how to help your teen cope, we welcome the author of Calming Teenage Anxiety, therapist Sophia Galano. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I know you wrote this book because you see the need firsthand, right? You've had so many parents come to you and say, I think my teen needs help, but I'm not quite sure where to start that process.
Yes, absolutely. No, this is a population that is in such need of support, of practical guidance, tips, and tools. Parents are really at a loss, they're concerned, they're confused, and, often they just don't even know where to begin.
Well, and I think it becomes complicated because just being a teenager is so hard in general. So how do you kind of draw the line with families of, is this normal teenage hormonal behavior, or is this something that might need a deeper dive?
Yes. And it's a great question, and I want to preface by saying that, it is really understandable and common for parents to confuse the two of them. And oftentimes the most loving and concerned parents have actually overlooked a teen's anxiety because of exactly what you said, that they do think it's kind of standard teenage behavior, angst, hormones, kind of going through a phase. But what I usually recommend is, if a parent is unsure, is to really assess how often a teen is struggling and to what extent a teen is struggling. So I give this example. It's quite a simple example, but it can say a lot, which is, let's say a teen is nervous before taking a test. They're feeling anxious, they're feeling overwhelmed. They're able to get through it. They sit through the test. They're feeling anxious, they're feeling nervous, but they're okay. They can go on through the day, they can take other tests in the future, and they're all right. Whereas the teen who, let's say, throws up before the exam, or the teen who has a panic attack before the exam, or the teen who refuses to go to school because of the exam, or their grades are slipping in other classes because of this exam, or their social life is suffering because of it. That's when we want to take a closer look. So it's important for parents to be very mindful of how often and to what extent.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, and in terms of how parents and adults can best support teens, every kid is different, right? Are there some general rules we can follow to be there, hopefully, for our kids?
Right. Absolutely. So, saying this too, just to put this out there that, of course there are emergency situations that are an exception to this, but the general rule of thumb of what I recommend is for parents to really practice active listening and to utilize an inquisitive and curious approach rather than leaning on a more fix-it, solution-based mentality, which can sound easier than it actually is. Most parents, instinctively want to fix or provide solutions. And like I said, there are emergency situations where, of course, that is appropriate. But generally speaking, it's really important for teens to feel listened to feel heard, to feel that their parents are really wanting to understand them versus just to provide some sort of quick remedy to the problem, even if they're coming from a very positive
Well, and
place.
what about just unlocking that communication to begin with, right? I think a lot of teens are maybe a little bit hesitant to share certain maybe deep and dark thoughts with their parents.
Yes. So I remind parents all the time, not to get discouraged if, let's say, the teen opens up and it's only for 30 seconds, it's for a minute, that's great. And not to overlook that. It's also okay for parents if they've tried once and the time wasn't right. It's okay to revisit. Oftentimes I have parents that say, I tried once, or my teen only talked to me for a minute and it's a lost cause. Yeah, no, definitely not. It can be discouraging, but to keep an open mentality. If, let's say, the parent has tried multiple times or just constantly being met with resistance, what I recommend, and it might sound a bit unusual, is for the parent to mix up where they're having the conversation and how they're having the conversation. So this might sound a bit unusual for an adult, but we have to remember that we're talking about teenagers here. They almost speak a different language. But it's helpful to actually try to have the conversation in a setting that's more organic for the teenager. So rather than sitting down at the table and saying, let's have a conversation about anxiety over dinner, bring it up after watching a movie or a TV show where there's a character in there that has anxiety, or when you're driving. and it comes up, where the parent and the teens are not sitting face to face, or when they're walking a pet together, something that feels a little more organic and more natural for the teen, where they're actually not put on the spot. And again, it might feel too casual, or it might feel weird to the parent, but the teen actually really, really appreciates that versus feeling put on the spot.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, thank you so much for sharing with us today. This was such helpful stuff.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Sophia's book again is Calming Teenage Anxiety. We'll have more information on our website at katu.com. We'll be right back with more Afternoon Live right after this.